Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of This Week with Carolina Commits, the show where we look past the stars in the rankings and we evaluate the on-field performance of UNC football commits. I'm THL staff writer Brandon P. Joining me today, as she always does, is the director of football recruiting here at Tar Heel Illustrated. That's Miss Dina King. Dina, how are you doing today?
Doing really good. Got lots to talk about with Carolina commits and stuff today.
Wait, before we get started, speaking of Carolina commits, Carolina had a game on Saturday against Campbell. And like every other game, football recruits came to the game. Not as many recruits as they usually get for a normal FBS opponent, but they had some recruits in, and somebody actually committed to Carolina on Saturday. Can you talk about that, Dina?
Yeah, Leroy Jackson, a 3-star defensive tackle from Lee County in Georgia. He came up for the Miami game and was blown away with everything at UNC, and he committed to the Tar Heels on Saturday. I believe he was originally supposed to announce around noon, but that was like kickoff of the Carolina game, and maybe he said he should put that off for a few hours or so until after the game. And he did commit to UNC. He's a really good pickup and a position of need. They need a guy that can get after the quarterback. And looking at his stats, he does. He gets after the quarterback with numerous sacks and quarterback hurries. So a great pickup. He's the 27th commitment for that class of 2024, and I believe maybe the 8th kid from Georgia. So that's 30 commits between the 24 and the 25 class. So Carolina's doing really, really well in the recruiting department.
Well, I don't know if he has any more games left, but now that he's a Carolina commit, he can now be eligible for this list. So he might be happy about that. But now we're going to jump straight into the list. We're going to talk about the top 5 UNC football commits performance from this past Friday. And we're going to jump straight into the list. At number 5, we have someone who has been on this list many times. Running back Davion Gauss out of the Chaminade Madonna, who defeated Lakewood 57-0. Can you talk about his performance last Friday?
He's had some injury issues this year, but he had a good game Friday night. Ran 10 times for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns for that Chaminade Madonna team, who is really, really good, still undefeated, and they're heading into the playoffs this coming week down there in Florida.
Yeah, they got a quarterback committed to NC State and a running back committed to UNC. Who would have thought, right? Going to the number 4 spot on this list, we have Curtis Simpson of Kings Mountain. He's also been on this list many times. His team is now 10-1. They defeated Smoky Mountain 37-7. By the way, Curtis Simpson's team, their lone loss came to Javarius Green's team last week. First loss of the season, big loss. But they bounced back this week. They beat Smoky Mountain 37-7. Can you talk about why did Curtis make the list this week?
Curtis, he's just very consistent every week. Had 8 tackles for the Mountaineers and helped them beat the Smoky Mountain Mustangs and advance to the second round of 3A state playoffs here in North Carolina. So a big game for Curtis as he plays that defensive end jack position for the Mountaineers. I don't know if they use the term jack, but he will play jack at UNC.
Yeah, and staying in North Carolina high school football, playoff football, we have number 3, Alex Taylor out of Grimsley High School. His team is 11-0. They defeated North Meck, who was actually a rival of my high school back in those days. They defeated them 54-0. Can you talk about how Alex made the list this week?
Yeah, I think this may be Alex's biggest game stat-wise of the year. Caught 10 passes for 150 yards with a touchdown. So big night for him as Grimsley 11-0. They cruise into the second round of the 4A state playoffs.
Yeah, a lot of people are really down on UNC football at this very moment as we speak. But one thing that you can't deny is they can recruit some receivers and they continue to recruit really good receivers. And speaking of the person who's going to be throwing to those receivers, we have at number 2, we have Bryce Baker from East Forsyth High School, another repeat member of this list. They defeated Page High School 42-6. What did Bryce do this week to earn his spot on the list again?
He's the 2025 quarterback commit. He's probably at 3,000 yards now since he had a big night against Page, completed 17 of 25 passes for 284 yards and 3 touchdowns. So East Forsyth, they have a really good team, and they will advance. And as far as Bryce Baker is throwing the ball and they're moving the ball, they got a great chance to make a really deep playoff push in the 4A brackets.
Yeah, a lot of quarterback play doesn't translate from high school to college, but one thing you do like to see is the high completion percentage and a good touchdown to interception ratio. And I think Bryce Baker is showing both of those things this season. So I think that's a really good sign for UNC in the future. And the number 1 spot on our list is well deserved. I'm looking at the stats, but I'm still going to ask you what he did. It's well deserved. Ryan Ward from Rutherford High School, 10-0 on the year. They defeated Hanover Park 28-7. Can you talk about his performance?
This might be the best performance of the whole season to date. As we've told many times, every time Ryan makes it, we talk about his athletic ability playing on both sides of the ball. But get these numbers. He caught 6 passes for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then on defense, he had 13 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks. Give him the game ball. They advanced to the 3rd round of the state playoffs in New Jersey. So big game for Ryan. He is just doing really, really well. And, we say this every time he makes the list. We're anxious to see when he gets to UNC. He was recruited as a tight end, but good gracious, look at those defensive numbers. So
if you're getting multiple in the game, it might be hard for them to keep him on the offensive side of the ball, especially considering how much talent UNC already has on the offensive ball. I think they need more reinforcements on the defensive side, especially that defensive line. All right, Dina, the next segment of our show, we talk about this upcoming week that North Carolina fans should have on their radar, I should say. We're now in North Carolina high school playoff football. We might be in playoff football everywhere, at least in our region.
I think everybody starts this week that's in that every state that commitment's in. So Georgia and Florida is starting. And I don't think Maryland and Virginia has yet, but majority Georgia and Florida. So
yeah, so the next part is we talk about the upcoming games that UNC fans should have on their radar. And all of these games should be relatively competitive considering we're in the 2nd round of the playoffs. Things are going to start to get – the margin of error is going to start to get tighter and tighter as we keep going on. So if you're in any of these areas, I encourage you to go out and watch these games. They should be good. But the number 1 game that we have on our list is Chambers versus Weddington. Why should anybody with UNC ties be interested in that game?
Well, with Weddington, you have – Keenan Jackson, who has had an outstanding senior year. He is probably close to about over 1,600 yards now in receiving. Had a pretty good game last week, but, when those 5 that I had there were really good. And I said at the early part of the year, sometimes it's going to be tough to pick only 5, but Keenan had 85 yards receiving, touchdown, in their win last week, and they're the number 1 seed in the 4A West, and they have a Chambers team coming in that, Chambers has been really, really good the last 5 to 6 years. Of course, they used to be called the Vance Cougars. Now they're the Chambers Cougars, and they've put several kids in the Power 5 ranks. So huge game in Union County, the Charlotte metro area, with Chambers playing at Weddington. That's the 16 versus 1 matchup. You tell me Chambers is not a 16 seed.
That's what I'm saying. I was just about to say that. So Weddington is the number 1 seed, but Chambers just has such good tradition with their program. You can't just count them out because of the seed beside their name. The next game that we have on our list is Kings Mountain at AC Reynolds. We just talked about Curtis Simpson. Obviously, it's a big game for him, but are there any other reasons UNC fans should be excited for this game?
Well, they Kings Mountain goes up the mountains to Asheville to play a very good football program is what AC Reynolds has year in and year out. Be interesting to see how they do up there. I mean, as we're recording this Monday, there's calling for some bad weather maybe this week, and it may affect some of these ball games. And when you get up there and around Asheville, there's no telling what kind of weather you may have, So I picked that. Curtis Simpson and his Mountaineers hope to advance on to the 3rd round, but they got to get by a very stingy AC Reynolds team.
Yes, and the last game on the list this week, we have Rutherford at Westwood up in New Jersey. Why would UNC fans be interested in this game?
Ryan Ward, well, mentioned it earlier. 3rd round of playoffs, both teams, I believe, are undefeated. So that's a huge, huge game up in New Jersey. This is for the Northern Tar Heels if they're up in the Jersey area, if they want to go watch a game. That would be a good game to go watch if they're interested in doing that. So, playoff football's here. It's getting cold. The time changed. I don't really like the time change. It gets darker sooner, and it's just that time's here. The overlap's here between basketball and football too. So it's time to really get busy.
Yeah. And just as I said earlier, these are now playoff games. So in my opinion, when you watch a football player that's going into college, you want to see him play against good competition to see what can translate to the next level. And I think, we're going to watch playoff games. It doesn't get more competitive than that. So I think if you are in any of these areas, you should go check out the UNC Commits if you would like to do that. But Dina, I think that's a good place to stop for this week. We've gone through everything. For TarHeelIllustrated.com, I've been Brandon P. She's been Dina King. Thank you for watching.